Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you. In the words of Carl Jung, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Today's music is called The Last Days of May. Thanks to Rick Cleffel, this new music. Dream Divination with Nana Fofie Amina Bashir, trained in the Akom tradition of West Africa and a multi-modal artist. Nana Fofie will share her ideas around decolonization and restorative integration of ancestral wisdoms. I'm your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps folks learn more about dreaming. And my mission here is to infect you with the bug of dreaming. Yeah, I really want to spread this excitement about how powerful nighttime dreams are. Even if you don't remember them, they're doing a lot behind the scenes. So you can send us a nice review, give us 5 stars, but most importantly, tell your friends. This is how things go viral, is by sharing with your friends. Archives are also available at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find them on the KSQD website, ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. I'm just going to take a minute with my personal dream work, which is I had a dream this morning of a big, complicated mansion, which is a very familiar theme for me in my dreams. And it's like, this is something I've seen many, many times, and it's all getting more and more run down. And this time in the dream, finally the roof was collapsing and everything was decaying, and it was just, there was no way that I was going to be able to restore this thing. And I'm like, let it drop. Let it collapse. Whatever that represents, I don't even know. I don't need to know. It's just a sense of relief. That big, complicated mansion, whatever that represents in my psyche, let it go. Nana Fofie is a spirit and energy worker, a somatic and expressive arts therapist. She is Nkomfo Opanine, trained in the Akom tradition of West Africa and rooted in New Orleans, Louisiana. Throughout the Gulf South and across the globe, Nana Fofie guides individuals, groups, and institutions in uncolonized relational practices for trauma, healing, and liberation. Her webpage is nanafofie.org. It's NANAFOFIE.org. Okay, Nana Fofie, hello.
Good morning.
So glad to have you on the show, and I am excited to chat with you and learn more about you. And I have to start by saying, what is Nkomfo Opanine? And what is the Akom tradition of West Africa? I want to hear a little bit about where you're coming from.
Thank you. And thank you for the beautiful intro and sharing your dream. Thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here in conversation with you. So the Akom tradition is an African indigenous spiritual and cultural tradition from the western region, Ghana, Cameroon, Togo areas of West Africa. And it is an very ancient ancestral practice, healing, plant medicine, spirit work, and of course divination and dream work. And Akomfo is the tree word for a practitioner of that, and Opanine is a senior elder. So I'm an elder practitioner in that tradition.
And so have you gone there to study, or have you studied with people from that area?
Oh, yeah, that's where I went to study. I'm back there COVID made a little interruption, but I'm usually back there every year or two and stay there for a while. I lived there and did my work and study and training there for periods of time.
Okay. So, well, let's get right into dream divination. So what is that? And, say a little bit more what that is compared to what we might hear in the U.S. called dreamwork, or the kind of Western kind of European style of dream work. What is that you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's actually very similar, just using some different language. I use dream divination specifically in both the internal and the spiritual connection context of it. And that's really what divination is. It's the connection with the divine, with the elemental wisdom, with source creator, however you call it, with God, with ancestors, to be able to question, to inquire, to seek answers, and to explore. And one of the ways of that divination, one of the most important and vital and critical and accessible for all of us, even those who think they don't dream, is through our dreams.
So the spiritual connection, because and as you say, even for those who don't dream, or as you say, don't think they dream, because studies have shown that virtually everybody has REM cycles every night, but even if we don't remember them, there's something valuable. Like I like to talk about the evolutionary process of dreaming, and that every animal that's been studied has some kind of REM period and some kind of rapid eye movement or activity during sleep time, even things like octopuses and spiders.
Yes.
So there's something incredibly valuable about the whole process of dreaming, even if you don't remember your dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the many levels and layers of sleep being our most restorative practice, our most constant and critical and necessary, second only to breath and breathing, restorative practice. And even if we don't remember, but there are also ways and practices of seeking to remember, even if it's just getting small nuggets. Some people say, I don't dream, but I'll have flashes of this. And you can start with those flashes of that. If it's a color, if it's an image, just what is that? And just start with that. Why am I seeing this color or this image? Even in you sharing your dream. One of the most important parts of that, I heard you say, I've dreamt of this before, is looking at the themes. I've dreamt of this house before, and now it's looking like this. Or I've dreamt of this image before, but now it seems to be in this shade or in this position. All of those are ways that we can continue to inquire more and lean more into our dreams and expand even our memory of them.
Yeah, I have certain dreamscapes that are incredibly familiar to me, and they evolve over time, or I have different adventures in the different scapes. I have this certain mountain that I visit, and there's my famous Burning Man dreams, of which I've had many, many. And this particular one of the old mansion is a wonderful theme, and I'm actually really excited that it's collapsing. I don't know what it means, but it's got to be good.
Yes,
something new.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What about you? Do you have themes that you're willing to share or comfortable to share with us, or any?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have places. There are, and it's similar. So for the audience that may not even be familiar with this, most people have heard, even in just go to your happy place.
You're right.
Right.
Yep.
So, for instance, whatever that version is, and so we can have that in our dreams also and not even realize that. So there's a place by the river, or and for me, I have themes by water. I have themes in the woods. I have themes in particular houses. I've lived a lot of places, and it's interesting when I'm taken back to particular houses, especially family homes, and very and homes that have particular significance at different points in my life. So I pay attention when I'm dreaming of those homes.
Yeah, working with those recurrent themes can be powerful. And yet you also talk about the flashes, like when people say, "Oh, well, I just had this image." Like, well, that's a dream. And
exactly.
And you use the word nugget. Yes, they're nuggets. I mean, snippet seems disrespectful. People say, "Oh, it's a snippet," and it's okay, but like
it's a nugget. It's an acorn.
It's a shard or something.
The whole tree is
acorn. Ooh, I like that one too.
The whole oak tree is there. in that nugget. So again, it's just about being willing to give that your attention and to be willing to be in conversation with even that nugget and see when and where it keeps popping up. You know, if it's something that is a recurring issue at work, and whenever that thing is popping up, you know what, I don't know why I dreamt of that acorn last night. But, you know, being able to pay attention to where the cycles are, what's happening in your life, because it really is a conversation. Dreams and how we get our lessons from dreams, how we understand ourselves and our surroundings from dreams, is a conversation, and it's a perfect integration of, you know, mind, body, and spirit. Because there's the part that informs our dreams. Yes, there's the mental part that informs our dreams, but we know mental is not separate from the body or the spirit. And so it's that whole conversation of mind, body, and spirit that we can look into and see which one is dominating in this conversation. You know, which one is speaking more, how are they trying to speak to each other, and how can I then use that information for my own integration of mind, body, and spirit.
So are you saying that the dreams speak from all three of those places, mind, body, and spirit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
The way that dreams can come up, so for instance, if you have a recurring dream, or because as we know, so you started out speaking with Jung, who is very well known for dream work and therapy, and also my work in the world. Also, I'm a therapist. I'm an expressive arts and somatic therapist, and I incorporate a lot of dream work into my therapy. And Jung, of course, brought dream work into Western therapy from his studies with indigenous peoples around the world and their practices of working with dreams.
I had not made that connection before. You're quite right, though. He did spend a lot of time in Africa working with those particular indigenous peoples, as I understand it, and brought back some of their traditions. And then you're talking about going right to the source yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't discount. I think Jung is very valuable in Western psychology, certainly as an interruption of Freud, but his dream work being very valuable. But it is important not to hold him as the source and the unique introduction of dream work into our healing work and into our internal investigation. Because he was able to garner that knowledge and go and study from those practices that had been there and are still there, and incorporate that into Western psychology, which again is valuable. But as you said, let's also honor and go back to the source. Yeah,
that's great. I'm already rethinking my quote at the top of the show. I think it's time for a new quote. This is great. So tell me a little bit more about the conversation. You talked about having a conversation with our dreams. So we can do that. We can have conversations with our dreams. How do you recommend that we do it from the waking life side? Because you mentioned mind, body, and spirit, and I don't know how most people are, but I'm very dominated by mind. That this is like my main experience of being alive is my mind. And so I guess I'm curious how you recommend addressing dreams, and if a dream comes up, how do you start the conversation?
Well, first of all, we are absolutely, especially in this time, in this age, and in this societal construct, it is about being dominated by the mind. But even in that, understanding that our mind in and of itself is still connected to body and spirit. So instead of with it can feel overwhelming or anxiety producing, like for instance, when people try and start meditation, I can't quiet my mind down.
That's
right?
Me.
You don't have to.
Oh,
you don't have to, because it's about the integration. It's about the noticing. And so in terms of beginning in the conversation is, first of all, and again, the mind is the information as well, especially since it is in communication with the body and the spirit. So if I'm in anxiety about something, you know, for instance, a work situation or a family situation, and that's showing up in my dreams, that is the mind absolutely also incorporating what we're ruminating about in our brain, in our mind, into our dreams, but bringing in also for a different opportunity to work with whatever that anxiety-producing issue is.
Mm.
And so being in a practice, you can incorporate, for instance, journaling before you go to bed. So first of all, allowing that process. Oh, I'm really fixated on this issue with work. Let me write about what is bringing that up, and then let me ask a question. You know, let me ask a question of my ancestors or of even my higher self. Let me ask a question to my dreams and see what comes up. You know, keep a journal by your bed so that when you do either wake up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, before you grab your phone to scroll or before you jump up out of bed to make coffee or whatever your morning practice is, take a moment just to breathe, because that's another reason why a lot of people think they don't dream or don't remember their dreams, is we jump out and switch so quickly from our sleep that we don't give ourselves a moment to hold on, let me recall and let me let that sink in.
Right.
And so being in that conversation and the integration of mind and dream is being intentional about, I know this is in my mind. Let me offer myself a practice that I know my mind uses. But in journaling, you are also incorporating other parts of your body and spirit. That's why journaling is such a powerful practice. So let me do this, and even using non-dominant hand and letting yourself draw and sketch so it's not just in the writing. And then put that, you know, offer that, ask a question, and then start to see what little nuggets come up. That's interesting. I dreamt of this frame. You know, and just start to see and connect the dots of what that frame might be. And that's how Jung was able to create the archetypes of dream work. Is first of all, they're culturally specific, many of them, but there are also some that are very overreaching. And then, of course, almost all of them connect back somehow with our relationship to our environment and with nature. So when we talk about archetypes, for instance, a lot of people will know that, oh my goodness, I had a dream of my teeth crumbling or my teeth falling out. You know, that is a very, very common dream.
Yep.
And so there are certain things that are just in our collective psyche. And that is both a mental thing, because we have this anxiety, and it's a physical thing because of the connections of our oral cavity with our brain. And then it is the spirit or the consciousness bringing what we know in our mind and body to a meaning in our dream. That's how those archetypes even work and have meaning for us. And so in conversation with your dream, it's just understanding your own individual archetypes. So if an archetype for you is that house, and an archetype for me is the river, what is someone else's archetype where they can then learn not only that this is a place that I go often in my dream, but why am I going there in my dream? And then you can graduate to, I'm going to go there intentionally in my dream, because that's where I know I can get these answers, or that's where I know I can be calm, or that's where I know I can connect with this ancestor.
Right. Okay. So these are archetypes so that can change, right? Because certainly the dreamscapes that we've been talking about, they evolve over time. But you know, I guess I never thought about archetypes like that. But it makes sense to me that if for any person there would be some kind of evolving North Star or something, some kind of evolving life idea to organize around, and as that changes, then these inner landscapes would change. And so you're talking about intentionally going back to some of these places, like whether in a lucid dream or even in your imagination while awake, and what is, and just seeing what's there, what's next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the noticing.
Okay.
And sometimes the archetype itself, for instance, the house that you mentioned, you know that as the archetype. And then what you're paying attention to is the crumbling, is what is happening to that archetype.
Okay.
And that's the information. So I can go to the river, which is an archetype for me.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do when I'm dreaming there is notice what is happening this time when I'm at the river. All the way down to What am I wearing? Or is anybody there? Am I alone? Does the river have leaves passing by? You know, I'm going to notice all of those things. And again, I'll start with, there's a particular color that has been an archetype. And I know whenever I'm dreaming in that particular color, okay, this is happening.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. I love that, to notice those changes. Like, I mean, even people with recurring, like even nightmares and things that are really uncomfortable. When you talk about a theme, it sounds very innocent when we're talking about a river or a mountain or something. But when it's something, you know, horrific, it can be very challenging to go in there. And yet what I hear you saying is that we can notice the differences. Like, is there something that's a little bit different this time?
Right, and that's where the healing is.
Yeah,
because dream work, and when we talk about using this in therapies and in healing practices, that's where the information is. And that's where it is important to dream, to when therapists who work with dreams bring dream into session work, because of course it is impactful and jarring and triggering and all of those things when you have nightmares, especially that are tied to phobias or particular traumas, things like that.
Yeah.
However, in the talking about them first, just in the being able to talk about them is part of the ease, because in the talking about them, you notice and you demystify a lot of it. But you also are able to notice those differences, and those differences can point to, oh, I didn't even realize that this is all of what was happening to me then, and this is where I am now, and this is how I can begin to notice what triggers me, for example. This is how I can begin to notice how I'm healing. So many times on our healing journeys, it's so hard to even know how far we've come or how much we have healed without markers, because we're so used to being in it, or we just don't notice our own progress. Dreams can be incredible information about that.
Yes. Yes. I've certainly had a lot of that experience, and for me the dreams have been a real gateway to the body and to my own feelings, and it's still a challenge, and yet I have so much more trust in myself than I used to. But the third part of this mind, body, spirit that you're talking about is something that you know, it's always there in with the other ones, and it's something that I don't know how to put into words very well. And I wonder if you'd like to talk a little bit more about spirit and how that manifests in dreams, and how we can, I don't know, look for it, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another just critically important aspect of dreams, and again, a practice that we can develop and lean more into, is that's a time where, and again, the mind is always going. So as we're working with meditation and as we're working with dream work, we are working on lessening the mind's hold, and that just means its construct, its interpretation of things, right? That ego. And so sleep is a time when that is at least partially back. Right. And as we get better sleep, deeper sleep, as we get into practices of deeper rest, that part of our consciousness has stepped back. And so that means that the wisdom of spirit, and this is our own consciousness and our own connection with divine, and this is whatever religion, whatever belief system or not, just being however you are in connection with your deepest, highest consciousness. And so being able to allow that space and understand that space as a source of connection, that's where the spirit also can come in, and you can get that pure wisdom. You can get that form for healing and for guidance, you know, praying and going to sleep.
Okay. Right. Right. And what kind of, I guess that form of the guidance could probably take many different forms, like whether a human form or just the guidance of the dream itself, or I want to say a little bit more about the idea of guidance, please.
Absolutely. So guidance in terms of, you know, what do I do next, or what do I do in this particular situation, or what am I doing with my life? Existential questions.
Yeah.
It can be, again, what do I do at Monday at work, to what am I doing with my life?
Mm-hmm.
And when we're asking those questions, whether we're consciously doing that or not, we're seeking guidance. We're seeking a higher guidance. And so in that guidance, meaning letting us know, spirit, including our own higher self, the wisdom that is not limited by the construct of, because we're so distracted, right? We're so overstimulated with media and work, and especially these days, we're busy.
Yep.
And that limits our ability to see a broad picture, where our connection with our higher self and our deeper consciousness can see all of it, and certainly doesn't care about what you're scrolling on Instagram. It's actually seeing the bigger picture, and depending on your beliefs, your soul's greater guidance. So what are you supposed to be doing here? How can you actually move to that place? So in terms of that spirit connection, first of all, it can be a grounding in what is really important and what is going to support you and sustain you.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to know that actually I need to sit in meditation, or actually I need to drink more water, or actually, I need to make sure that I'm singing. I haven't, I used to draw a lot. My dreams keep telling me to draw. I need to draw more, because that's what allows for imagination, and that's actually what will get me to be able to hear and see the answers that Spirit is trying to tell me.
That's fabulous.
Because all of this is about trying to open ourselves and our consciousness up to be able to see and hear and interpret that higher wisdom that's right there.
Nana Fofie, this is a great conversation, and we have much more to come. We need to take a short break, but we're going to come right back. This is Nana Fofie Amina Bashir, and her webpage is nanafofie.org, NANAFOFIE.org, and you can read all about her work on the Wisdom's Ladder and this Dream Divination online. And we're going to talk some more about re-indigenization when we come back, and the idea of visionary world building. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. Okay, next week, tune in for a show about lab-based research into lucid dreaming and nightmares. A conversation with Michelle Carr, PhD. That will be the first of 3 replays, which you will hear while I'm traveling to Europe for the IASD Dream Conference. I picked up some of my favorite, most popular shows from the last few years to play for you. I hope that you enjoy them, and I'll see you on the last show in June. You can check us out by following hashtag The Dream Journal on Instagram and Facebook. And I post announcements about the show, and I have shareables and occasional videos. So hashtag The Dream Journal to follow us. You can also follow my personal accounts at Experiential Dreamwork. Oh, just at Experiential Dreamwork. My webpage is experientialdreamwork.com. Okay. We welcome back to the show Nana Fofie Amina Bashir, and of her webpage is nanafofie.org, NANAFOFIE. And Nana Fofie, we have a caller already. We have Jenny from Santa Cruz online too. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Hey.
I just was really moved to call in because I'm finding this discussion so interesting.
Great. I'm glad you called.
It relates to doing shamanic work and shamanic drumming, that the same kinds, the information can come to us through so many different ways, and your guest's way of opening up the dream world sort of commingling with the shamanic journeying and intuitive writing and just receiving from spirit is just really thrilling to hear, and I really want to thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm so glad that you called. Nana Fofie, what do you think about shamanic drumming? Is that something you have experience with?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Jenny. I'm so glad you called and that you're here. Absolutely. Drumming is, speaking of going back to indigenous practices, drumming is you can find it in all of them. An early part, drumming is integral to the connection, to the calling. It's a communication. It's a language. It invites the dance, which is another language and connection and communication. And if it's all right, I'd just like to offer that there's not a difference. They're integrally connected, shamanic drumming and dream work. Because again, going back to, for instance, the source. So Jung getting this from the indigenous people, but when we think where all of this came from, so much of this came from dreams. So if you go back to so many of the stories, of the old stories, if you sit, in the circle with shamanic practitioners, and 7 generations back, this drum rhythm came from an elder in her dream or in his dream. So they're connected.
It's just fabulous, and it's so opening to all the realms. I appreciate this immensely, and I really bow to you and thank you both.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. And then I also wanted to offer, when we're talking about practices of connecting with your dreams, it's reciprocal. Drums are also an incredible way to do the same, to open up yourself, because drumming, we can get into the neurobiology of it, but drumming also opens up our own pathways. So drumming also is that way to connect back to dreams and to open yourself up to more lucid dreaming.
I certainly have found drumming to be very transformative. It can be very trance-inducing. Whether I'm playing the drum or just listening to the drum, it's something that I'm very, very drawn to. So, Jenny, I'm so glad that you brought this in.
Thank you,
My
Jenny.
great pleasure. I'm so glad that you're on the radio. Yay, K-Squid.
Yay. That's fabulous. All right, take care, Jenny. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Yeah, so there's something about the drum rhythms. I didn't realize that a lot of those were dream-inspired, but it does make sense. Certainly music often comes from dreams, so why not drum rhythms?
Absolutely. Music, art, so many of our writings. So, for instance, of course, I would be remiss. I always have to bring in Octavia Butler.
Oh, yes. I love her work. Oh, my goodness.
Fiction writer who I'm honored to share a birthday with.
Oh, great.
But yes, her books that, especially in this current time, especially if we're talking about world building and liberatory issues, her books are being used and studied constantly and increasingly. And she started with visioning, constant writing, to manifest these stories. And then so much of them would come to her in a dream, and then she would go back and write.
Oh, I didn't know that about her. She died tragically in her mid-50s or so, but she has quite a large body of work even so, in the sci-fi realm. Is very, very helpful. Oh, and we have another call. Stephanie, can you hear me? Stephanie from New Orleans?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Oh, Stephanie, is this Stephanie Burns?
Yes,
hey.
It is.
Hey, fantastic. So glad to have you call. You've been a guest before, and I know that the two of you will be doing some presentations at the ISD conference coming up. But
Absolutely. Talking about elemental dreaming along with Akinke Lucas. So looking forward to it.
What can we do for you, Stephanie? Thanks for calling.
Yeah. First of all, I've been enjoying this show. Thank you, Catherine, for the work you do. Nana Fofie, you are just a gift. And you gave so many acorns of this oak tree. And the question I have, if I'm someone who dreams for the community, what advice do you have for me in terms of doing, or anyone who dreams on behalf of other people and doing dream divination. Because I heard where you said, like, go back into those dreams, find where your happy place is, look, be observant. But what happens when that place that I'm in is your place, and let's say you and Catherine appeared in my dream, and it's your places and not mine? Any advice that you have of how to navigate that?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. And knowing you and anyone who would be doing that work is going to make sure that there is a connection, an introduction, something that can be observed and felt around the person or people community that they're working with. And so this is, again, understanding the information that we receive from mind, body, and spirit. And so the same way that we get to know that and observe that in ourselves and our surroundings, what can we get to know, including intuitively, about this person and this community that we're dreaming for? What can we ask them more? Because there are going to be some things that you might dream that you know the meaning to, but in sharing that information back in whatever message or information you're giving to them, what is going to be the meaning making for them? So understanding what is important and what might be some nuggets for them, and see what that connects to in the dreams that you're having. And as an intuitive, they're probably already coming through your dreams, but there may be different ones, so that you are in observation of what is important and meaningful, what their meaning making of their surrounding and their archetypes might be.
So how do you recognize that, Nana Fofie? How do you know somebody was up for somebody else? I mean, we have the intuitive realm, but
the intuitive realm, and then also as you're meeting, and this is a bit where also the practitioner hat comes in, taking a moment to speak with someone, to ask them questions, always asking a lot of questions. First of all, again, to let their consciousness come through. Asking people questions and letting them speak. There are actually so few places that people can really just speak to deeper parts of themselves that it's amazing how people will open up and how their consciousness will come through. Like, oh my God, this is actually a place I can do this. And their higher self, their consciousness will come through. And so asking just questions, just opening questions to that person, and then noticing their body language. And then, of course, the intuition. But finding out what is important to them. And then if you're in a regular practice, the same way that you bring your own nuggets to the question and say, hey, and you're asking in conversation with your dream, can we be in conversation with this? Take that information for somebody. I had this red Mustang when I was in high school, and it was A, B, and C. Bring that and bring that to your own inner self and your own dream realm. Say, you know what, this is something that's meaningful, and ask and see how often red comes up, or a Mustang comes up, or a fast car comes up. Just see what happens with what they mention and where those things start to come up, as well as matching that with the nuggets that you already have. And that in and of itself, the conversation of those two, the interaction of those two, gives so much information to you, and then gives you the language and the imagery to give it back to the person and the message they can receive.
Okay, thank you. And that was so key, because I think the part where you say ask a lot of questions for practitioners who do dream on behalf of other people, so important, because we can always start to interject our opinions when we need to be more of the observer then. So thank you. This is actually going to be used today.
Right, right. I mean,
You're so welcome.
Oh, Stephanie, that's great. Wonderful question. Yeah, there's.
You're welcome.
There is something about dreaming for the community and dreaming for the planet and dreaming for our society. That I think it's something that we kind of maybe here in the West get lost in the individual personal growth work. Like, what is this personally for me? But to bring in the larger questions is, what does this mean for my culture? What does this mean for the planet? I think it's a really good reminder. Never mind just my friend who's having a really rough time in her life right now, to bring in her and how can I dream for her? Absolutely.
And it's also a way to again, as especially aforementioned, us not having very many spaces where we can allow our deeper consciousness to be in conversation, it's also a way for us to be in conversation with that deeper consciousness. You know, so I have a sick friend, but maybe it's hard for her to be vulnerable, or she doesn't know what or how to share. You know, being with her and just inviting her spirit into my dreams so that, oh, she didn't even let me know that this is what she needs, but in her dreams she showed up with that, or she asked me for that. In my dreams she showed up and she asked me for that, or she showed up with that, and I know to bring that back or to offer that back for her, or even ask her about it.
And, you know, there's layers, the whole thing of if somebody that we know from waking life shows up in a dream, I always imagine that there's a part of me that person represents, but there's also a part of that person themselves and my relationship to them. And so to consider both of those aspects.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. You are so welcome. Thank you so much for the question, Stephanie.
Yeah. Do you have some experience around dreaming for others, Stephanie, that you'd like to share with us, or that kind of
a thing?
Yeah.
Kind of actually what I do.
Okay.
But I also want to say, in context of that, I am an intuitive. I am a medium. I am, you know, someone who do channel ancestor and spiritual messages. So it's interconnected for me, because a lot of the messages comes through dreams. And, you know, in the apprenticeship that I teach, we talk about connecting with our ancestors, and it's really a two-way conversation that we're having. And the thing is how it's understanding how our ancestors are sending messages and how we like to receive messages. And so when I have clients say, you know, I saw my ancestors, but I don't want to see them because it scares me. I don't want them to show up. Like, please. I always say, ask them to come in your dreams, to come to you in your dreams, because then you're in a better position to receive the messages than, you know, we watch way too much TV.
True.
And so there is a particular community that I work with, and so there's consent around that. I am looked at someone who dreams on behalf of this community. I'm invited to be a part of that. So I don't just, you know, willy-nilly go up and like, hey, I had a dream with you in it, and I'm here to tell you, no. And my deep desire to help the earth. So everything I do is really connected to the earth. And so it's really, how does the earth and her involvement show up in our dreams with each other and to each other.
You were talking about elemental dreaming. And
oh, wow, what a segue for that.
Right. And Nana Fofie was talking about the river. So we have, and I was talking about, well, fire indirectly, and that the house, would it burn down? Let it go.
Yeah, so the elements are a huge part, and it's a way for us to stay connected to the house, the earth we live, and it's a way for us to stay connected to that.
Thank you, Stephanie Burns.
You're very welcome. Thank y'all. Thank you, Dr. Burns.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Burns.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much, and we will see you in Rolduc in the Netherlands in just a week. My goodness.
Wow, week from today.
Yeah. All right. Safe travels. And thanks for calling.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right. All right. So Nana Fofie, where do you want to go? We have re-indigenization on. We have a lot of different things. Wisdom's Ladder. Where would you like to go now in the last 6 or 7 minutes we have?
Well, in terms of dreaming for community, dreaming for others, and even why is this important? You know, if someone is not an intuitive for the community, or if someone isn't completely into this, why is this important? This is important for everyone. Again, from just general guidance to reducing anxiety to trauma healing, to how we build and vision our world and reach our goals. It's all of those things. Mm-hmm. For instance, right now, we are going through we're going through layers of collective trauma right now.
Yeah.
Layers. And yet we are still in this society that prioritizes and sometimes insists on individualization, which means sometimes we'll feel like I have to have the answer for everything, or even we in this group have to have the answer to everything. Meanwhile, again, going back to how did other people learn this before any of this modern age? Mm-hmm. They learned it by taking time with the elements and having them speak to them in their dreams. When we go and we study all these medicines, even pharmacology, all the pharmaceuticals come from the plant medicine. How did we learn the plant medicines? We learned to be with the earth elements and literally have them talk to us in our dreams. If you go back to, again, myriad indigenous cultures and ancient wisdoms tell you that. And then now a lot of the collective anxiety, in addition to still healing from a couple of pandemics that are ongoing, is what's going on politically. And so much of that angst is there's this very limited conversation and this limited way that people are seeing that, and it's taking away their power of real vision of so many other options. Mm-hmm. And in order to be able to dream for the collective and other options, what are those other options? That is information that, for instance, our ancestors have, or our higher consciousness has, or other people have, that we can receive in our dreams to know, oh, wait a minute, we don't even have to do it that way. This is how we can do it.
Right.
And especially when so many things are bringing up that angst, because what's really at the core is people are worried about core survival. And when you bring up people's core survival, everything, all bets are off. Right. You never know what is going to happen when people feel their survival threatened.
Oh, my gosh.
And so if we can take ourselves out of such a limited and narrow view of what equals our survival, then that greatly lessens the angst and puts us back into, wait a minute, there are so many other ways that we can do this. And that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different way of engaging with each other. And that opens up a slew of other possibilities for world building, for politics, for societal structure, for all of those things, instead of the constant angst of it's got to be done only these two ways, but these two ways are harmful, or this one way is harmful, all of those things. So being able to allow yourself to tap into the other consciousness so that we can remember that there are so many other options and be in the vision. And that's collectively, that's individually, that's community. It applies to all.
That is amazing. So, Nana Fofie, how can folks get in touch with you, since I think people will want to be following up on this conversation?
Absolutely. There is a contact page on my website, nanafofie.org, that comes directly to me, and I'll be able to reply back to you even from the Netherlands. Okay. So the website and socials are still building out because I'm doing a little shift in marketing stuff right now, but it at least works, and you can get in touch with me that way. But
that contact page will work, and it's Nana Fofie, NANAFOFIE.org. And Nana Fofie...
And you can email also directly at connect, CONNECT, at nanafofie.org.
Wonderful. So, Nana Fofie, this has been an amazing conversation, and I can't wait to meet you in person in the Netherlands.
I cannot wait to meet you, too. Thank you so much, as Dr. Burns said, for all the work you do, for the invitation for this Dream podcast.
Okay, thanks. Well, take care and safe travels.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, this has been the Dream Journal. Thank you so much for listening. We are produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific. You can listen to the live stream at ksqd.org, and thanks to our remote listeners, we have a good dozen people remote on the show right now. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming. When you subscribe, rate, and review, let's make the algorithm work for us. Speak for the dreamers. I am Catherine Bell. Find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org. Catherine is Katherine at ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram. I'd like to thank Rick Cleffel, engineer and music creator, Tony Rissimano for managing the phones, and the intro and outro pieces, which are both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
Perfect is the enemy of good. The journey to perfect always starts with should. Should is a word that should not exist. If you want to use it, try hard to resist, to resist, to resist, resist, resist. Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate. You won't get what you want, won't negotiate. Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate. Fate, tempting fate, 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 tempting fate, tempting fate, fate, fate. Oh, it's a done deal. Sausage made, get something done deal. Hopes might fade, forget your done deals. It's in the past, a dumb and working deal. Gonna make it last.